to is help us gain an insight into any new regulations or new mechanisms that will be forthcoming as of January the 1st, as far as the Department of Revenue, as far as the filings and anything that she deemed important. We thank her for her efforts and are fortunate to have her in the position of head of our Revenue Department. So do we turn it over to you, Commissioner, at this point? Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity for the Department of Revenue to present some information and updates to you this morning. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share our progress on our flagship project, our DRIVE system, and I'd like to acknowledge Commissioner Spencer Moore from the Department of Driver Services, who is also here at the meeting today. And if there are any questions on the driver services component of the DRIVES project, he's here and available to answer those questions as well. We have also provided to you a copy of the study that was warranted by legislation last session on the potential of elimination of decals on motor vehicle tags, and we have provided print copies of that report to you as well. I'd like to turn the meeting over now to our Director of Motor Vehicles, Ms. Georgia Steele, who is going to provide you with updates on operations at the Department of Motor Vehicles, as well as an update on our progress on the DRIVES project. Thank you, Ms. Georgia Steele.
I'm going to turn to the side. Okay. Good? Okay. So motor vehicles has those three operations. In essence, our mission is to make sure that we're providing motor vehicle services that facilitate inter and intrastate operations within the state of Georgia. And our overall vision is excellence in motor vehicle services and operations here in our state. So our primary responsibilities within motor vehicles is to issue certificates of title, vehicle registration, license plates and decals, handle insurance compliance, and also support the county tag offices. And so for a few of our slides, we have kind of a picture of motor vehicles just based on numbers. So we have 9.5 million vehicles registered here in the state. We have an increase in our numbers in passenger vehicles, motorcycles, etc., based on those categories. And then our top 10 specialty plates. And then on slide 8, there is just an update on the numbers for the plates that were approved last legislative session, which were the Thank Alignment plate, which currently has 344 plates actively on the road, and the Back the Badge plate, which has 1368. So just a high-level overview of our specialty plate process. There's usually two different kind of directions that this can go. So if it is a revenue sharing plate, it goes through the legislative process. That person typically contacts their state representative or their senator, and it goes through the General Assembly process. The commissioner goes through a review after that has been approved. We get the proper documentation, and then that is available on the roads. For the other process, it's pretty much everything else withstanding the legislative process. So just to do a quick update on our legislation that was passed last year, starting with House Bill 412, that's on slide 11. So this is the electronic title and registration process, ETR. So this has been a process that has been around since 2011, but it went mandatory January of this year. And for the fiscal year before, we saw almost 800,000 transactions done through that process. The ETR process, in essence, allows for a dealer to do a title and registration for a customer. So a customer comes in, purchases a vehicle, they get the little sticker, the TOP on the back of their car, no tag applied for, it needs to be handwritten. So they get that, and they're able to kind of, go through the registration process, and all of it is done electronically and put back into our system. Some of the benefits of the program is that it allows for us to have that electronic communication between the dealer and also the department, meaning that the information gets into the system much faster. And it eliminates that back and forth. So if the customer happens to be here in Atlanta and they live, in South Georgia, if that county that the actual customer lives in is not a part of the ETR process currently, the customer would then have to, not the customer, the dealer would then have to have someone go to the tag office, or then they'd have to mail the paperwork to the tag office in order for that customer's transaction to get taken care of. And this allows for everything to be done at a computer. They're able to load all the information in. They have a reviewer that reviews the paperwork, ensures that everything is there that's supposed to be there for the transaction, and then that is loaded into the system. So definitely saves time. So on slides 13 and 14, we're listing some of the ETR benefits. So looking at the reduction in the manual data entry, ensuring that there is also ensuring reduction in fines. So one of the things that was happening is that some of the dealers, because either the customer was turning in an old vehicle, so they had to wait on the title, or there was not really a sense of urgency because they always felt like they could walk into the tag office and get it done right before the customer's TOP expired. This allows for them to get everything into the system quickly, to be able to move forward with that transaction and get the customer the plate that they're supposed to have in a timely manner. So on 15 and 16, slide 15 just covers just high level how the ETR process works. There are some exceptions to that process, and I just want to kind of go through that really quickly. So out-of-state dealer sales are not included in this process. So if a Georgia resident went to Tennessee, saw a great car, had to get that dealer is not required to be a part of the ETR process. If the owner doesn't have a Georgia's driver's license or identification card, so the person is from Tennessee and they're coming into Georgia to buy a vehicle, that would not be a part of that process. Non-motorized vehicles, or any vehicles that are not included in the TAVT category, so government vehicles, loaner vehicles, tractor trailers that fall under the IRP process would not be included. So speaking of IRP, as a part of House Bill 412, there was a requirement that all of those transactions now are mandatory within that system. So if a customer that is operating under the IRP, which is the International Registration Plan, would like to do a registration, renewal, new application, etc., they're now required to do that within this portal that was created about 2 years ago. So within the state of Georgia, we have about 15,000 registered fleets, and that encompasses about 50,000 registered trucks here in our state. And so with this, there's this benefit of allowing the customer to really be in the driver's seat, and that is something that Motor Vehicles has been aggressively working on, is creating systems and programs that allow for the customer to really drive the transaction. So wherever they are, they're able to do the transaction on their time and their schedule. So the IRP system, which I might be a little biased, but I think is really at the forefront of the industry when it comes to commercial registration, is the system that allows for the customer, be in their truck here in Georgia or across the country in California, to upload all of their requirements, their documentation, and submit their application for renewal right from wherever they are. And there are some federal requirements that were there that requires that we put information or protocols in the system that make sure that unsafe drivers, and we've all, seen and heard of situations where we have these carriers that are placed out of business by either DOT or motor vehicles that reincarnate and become new companies. They try to get back into the system. This program allows for that to be stopped and prevents them from being able to get back into the system because we go through thorough reviews and checks, even though it's electronic, thorough reviews and checks to ensure that they're not able to go back and re-register. And then on slide 20, we have just some information on the stats in terms of, this is before it became mandatory as of January, what the renewal numbers and the ad fleet numbers look like for IRP. And so as you can see, most of our customers were already doing the online processing. This is something that they're now very used to. We've been, kind of ushering this in for the last 2 years, and so I think this will definitely be an added benefit to the customers. So just to highlight just a couple of the other projects that we've been working on. So we've tried to expand our tag renewal program. With 9.5 million vehicles in our state, I don't think we want all of those people going into tag offices, walking in, trying to get renewals done. And so we've worked with our IT team to expand on the way that customers can use their phones, their tablets, et cetera, to be able to do their tag renewal. So even though it's not an app, it feels like an app. So it makes it much easier to use. And then also, the last year when I was here, I talked about the self-service kiosk. That is where you're able to go up to the kiosk in a Kroger's location. I believe there's one in the DDS location as well, where you can scan the back of your driver's license and it pulls up all the information on the vehicles that you own, and you're able to renew once your county is a participating county. And currently we have about 25 counties that are participating. And then also we have on slide 22, our appointment scheduling. And that allows for customers to be able to schedule an appointment and come into our offices if they need to, so they don't have to wait online. So our big project, which the commissioner just mentioned, is our Drives project. That is noted on slide 23. My apologies, it's a little hard for me to see that. And so Drives is a partnership between the Department of Revenue and the Department of Driver Services. And it is our work or our intention to modernize both of those systems. Both of them are mainframe, green screen, those old looking, like banking looking systems from ages ago. And so what we're trying to do is overhaul and really upgrade them so they're at the forefront of the industry. Well, one thing that is important to note is that this is going to impact every driver and every vehicle owner in our state. And I think it's important for me to emphasize that, because this is a record and information that's housed in these systems for every single driver and every vehicle that has ever touched the state of Georgia. And so this does require a lot of collaboration between different entities, different agencies, GTA, the Georgia Technology Authority, to make sure that we have the infrastructure to be able to do this and do it correctly. Working with some of our partners on the law enforcement side, DPS, working with DOT to make sure that those communications and those interfaces are working the way that they're supposed to. So this is, for us and also for the state, one of the most highly visible and most closely monitored initiatives within decades. And I don't just think it's just for the state of Georgia. This is also for across the country, because this is the first time that any state has ever tried to do this kind of collaboration where you have two entities in terms of driver services and Department of Revenue working together like this to build the system. So the partnership is extremely important for both commissioners to be able to work together to get this done successfully. So one of the questions that I've been asked whenever I talk about Drives is, why are we doing this now? So the system that we're currently using is old, 19 plus years old. Doesn't sound old in terms of numbers, but in terms of technology and infrastructure, it is behind the times. And so it's difficult to maintain it. And also one of the problems that we've been having is that no schools are training for this type of technology anymore. And so we have people who are there, and we've kind of jokingly always said this, we have 3 subject matter expert programmers who have been there for either when the system just went live or were a part of the initial programming, that we basically said those 3 individuals can never be in the same car at the same time. They cannot travel together, just out of fear, because of the information and the knowledge that they have. So one of the things that we've really been focusing on is how can we provide better functionality? And so we feel like the system that we're working on is going to be able to improve customer service, is going to be able to reduce paper, and has better reporting and auditing capabilities. So if you note on slide 26, it talks about some of the benefits. And that's the customer service and communication, being able to get to the customer faster, going back again to putting the customer in the driver's seat so they're able to really lead and determine how they want their transactions to be done. Being able to enforce standard operating procedures, which is extremely important. With 159 counties, we want to make sure that everyone's not doing things in different ways. Everyone is doing things the same way. So regardless of whether or not you're within motor vehicles or if you're doing a transaction in Richmond County, the process will always be the same for the customer. And improve data integrity and accuracy, and again, reducing paper. Some additional added benefits is that there'll be faster training time. So one of the pieces, or one of the parts of the application is that there's an integrated training module. And so it allows for, as changes are made, for that training to be done through the system as well. And then this modern technology is going to allow for us to scale and be able to provide better services with a faster turnaround time and be able to put that out to the public. So on slide 28, there is a timeline showing what it is for both agencies. So Department of Revenue, Motor Vehicles Division, will be going live with our portion of the system, phase 1 of the system, on Memorial Day 2019. So if anyone here wants to join us for a barbecue on that day, feel free. It'll probably be a very stressful environment for us because as you can tell, for a system of our size and scope, this is going to be a major implementation for us, but we're excited because we're working with a great vendor. So on slide 29, we have a list of some of our stakeholders. So the tax commissioners, as I've mentioned before, law enforcement, our business partners, such as our ETR vendors, our inventory management system, and our vendor, GCI, who prints and mails our license plates. We do data sharing with insurance companies. And then also, I think the largest stakeholder is our citizens, because we want to make sure that we get this right. So when we look at some of these stakeholders, I talked about everyone outside, but I want to kind of look at some of the internal stakeholders that we have. So one of the ways that we went about doing this to make sure that we do this right is that we've pulled all of our kind of senior subject matter experts from our motor vehicles entity, from our unit, and put them on this project, which means when you send your best off, your operations is kind of stretched thin. But we thought it was important to make sure that we have the best focus on this project. And the IT team did that as well. One thing to note is while they are working on this project, they are still currently maintaining the current system and infrastructure that we're using, which then creates a challenge for us because then if there are programming changes, if there are tweaks that we want to make, they're building a new system, and then they're also working on any small adjustments, et cetera. So it creates a tight situation for us because we're not able to do what we would like to do in our system. So our closest partners, the group that we have been working with so I've been with the department for 5.5 years. And our counties, because they do 72% of all of the transactions that happen within our current system, they're our closest partners. And so we sent out a survey to the counties and said, listen, we're going to need your help. We want you to have a seat at the table. We need to do this together for it to be successful. And so we reached out to those county partners and got responses on who was able to send individuals in. to be able to participate. And on the right of slide 31, it just kind of highlights in color, that light yellow, just some of the counties that have been participating so far. So we have Gwinnett, Fulton, and others that have been participating and actually working with us to define how a transaction should look or how the process should flow, et cetera. So we have really been grateful for that. So I mentioned how excited we were and happy we were to have the partner that we're working with, and that is Fast Enterprises. So they are the leading, industry leader in building driver license and vehicle registration solutions. And what they have is an off-the-shelf system. It's called a commercial off-the-shelf system, COT system, which means in essence, when we purchase this product, it is 80% already built. And then what we're going to be doing for the other 20% is really focusing on what is specific to the state of Georgia and our needs. One thing that I should note, I should have said this when I talked about the Memorial Day date, is that this is a big bang implementation, which means the night before we shut down the current system and then we turn the new system on. So it's not a phased in or a regional implementation. It's going to be everyone goes live at the same time, same date. So turn the lights off, close our eyes, say a quick prayer, and pray when we turn the lights back on, they actually do come on. So it's gonna be a really big prayer. So at this present moment, where we stand is that the team, Department of Driver Services, team members from Department of Revenue, and some of our other partners are working at our Century Central location. That is our headquarters location. And so the core product is currently in the sandbox, and the sandbox is where we go and play and try to break it and, look at the transaction and say, well, this doesn't really work for how the tax commissioners are used to seeing it. How can we tweak the flow of the process to make sure that when we go through the organizational change and the training, it's not that drastic of a change for them. So it makes it easier to adapt. We're working on data conversion. So we have billions and billions of rows of data. Some of it may not be clean data. And so we want to make sure we're cleaning it up and going through iterations of pushing it into the system and see what comes back with errors or, if the field that we're mapping it to is the correct field. And so we're constantly going through that data conversion process. We're raising awareness with our external stakeholders. So we're sending communications to anyone that Gratis hits. We send out video communication to our tax commissioners and their staff to make sure that they understand what this change will mean. Also, we've sent out communication to anyone that we have interface relationships with, just to make sure that they're aware that this is coming. So when we reach out and say, we need an IT resource, they don't look at us and say, for what? We don't know what you're doing. And then also we're documenting the processes because we want to make sure that on day one, it might not be smooth, everything won't be perfect, but we want to make sure that when someone walks into the office on day one and they're going through a transaction, the agent that's at that window is not feeling as if I need to get a book because I don't know what I'm doing. I've never seen this screen before. So we're making sure we're documenting what the current system looks like, what the new system will look like so people understand what the changes are, and so they're able to embrace it a lot easier. And then continuing to work with the tag offices and their teams to make sure that we're getting this done in the best interest of everyone. And also working with our partners to find training locations because that is a lot of individuals that will need to be trained across the state. And so we're just looking forward to working with everyone to be able to get them trained and get this done. And that is it. Any questions?
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Prince for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions based on the Big Bang, and it's just, I'm sorry I came in a little late, Mr. Chairman, but the Big Bang implementation piece, have we not, and I'm sure this decision is made at pay grades higher than yours, but have we not thought about maybe doing maybe a region first, and then, as you say, get those lessons learned that you talked about. That way, when we do go wide, we at least have some common answers. Over.
I think the commissioner wants to take this one.
Thank you, Representative, for that question, and I will jump in because we had extended conversations about this. The problem of doing it in a regional approach is then we would have inconsistencies between counties. it's today, whatever county you walk into, the process is the same. That's why Georgia Director Steele spoke very specifically about the extensive training that we're doing, that we're taking it out to the counties. And all of the testing that's being done will give us some comfort that that go-live date will not be problematic. We're relying on the fact that this vendor has already performed this in other states, and it has successfully launched, not only on time, but on budget and without any hitches as a Big Bang approach.
All right, hey, thank you. And the second one I had, that all this data that we have together now, should my requirements to renew my license, someone who's had a license since about 16 years old, do I still need to bring my birth certificate, my social security card, and my FIRMA license? And I mean, with all the data that you would think you would probably have, we would already know that.
Commissioner?
Sure. I can speak to that, Representative Prince.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought.
Excuse me, Georgia. If you have a star on your license today, you don't have to bring all that information. It's required every 16 years by the federal government. So once we have a star, so that's 2 cycles that you basically can go through as a Georgia citizen over a 16-year period and not have to actually bring all that data in. But every 16 years, in accordance to federal law, we have to require it again.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Prince, other data that we have that's aged in the system, for example, vehicles that are no longer on the road, that have moved out of state, that have no reason to be in this new system, are being purged as we speak. So that we're optimistic that most of what will be migrated into our new drive system will be clean data that's accurate and useful for current vehicles that are operating in Georgia.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Ridley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Riley and I have already kind of discussed this a little bit, but I just had a couple of questions, and I know everybody's running short, so if we need to get together, I'd be more than glad to sit down and do that. On the electronic title registration, you spoke about a reviewer that reviews those titles. Who is that, and is that in with one of the systems that they go through?
So we have 5 vendors that currently handle, so the dealer sends the information to one of the 5 vendors, and those, the vendor would be responsible for reviewing the physical paperwork and then also doing the electronic transfer of the funds to the county.
Okay, and what cost does that come to? Is there a average to the dealer?
I actually don't recall at this time. I know they vary a bit, but I don't recall the amount right now.
And I will be happy to get that information for you, but each of the vendors that have been authorized to provide this service have a different scale. The department is not mandating the costs that they charge for
Okay.
that service. It's something that a dealer could negotiate with that vendor.
And so the dealer's not allowed to carry those to the courthouses anymore. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the old system that you're talking about y'all are replacing, is that the Gratis system, or is the Gratis system still going to be up and running?
The Gratis system will be replaced.
It will be replaced?
Yes. So our entire title and registration infrastructure will be within this new system.
Okay. Yeah, if y'all have some time sometime, I'd like
Oh,
to
sure.
sit down and go over some of this stuff, and that way I got questions I can answer folks back home.
We'd be delighted.
Any further questions? Does anyone in our audience have a question you'd like to pose to either Director Moore or Ms. Steele or the Commissioner? Would be happy to entertain it. The Big Bang date implementation.
Memorial Day,
Memorial Day of 19.
barbecue.
Well, we thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No,
We are
thank you.
available at any time to respond to constituent questions. As you can see, Commissioner Moore is as excited as we are about the launch of something that's 21st century technology and taking us away from something that is so aged and fragile, to give our taxpayers and our motorists much, much better service.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Director Moore. Do you have any further comments?
No, sir.
We appreciate you coming, and thank you, Ms. Steele, for
Thank you, Chairman.
excellent presentation. For committee members, Craig will go over. I'm gonna let you read them.
Okay.
Read them out. We have a few pieces of legislation already assigned to the committee. Craig will let you know what subcommittee these will end up in, so the authors of these measures can contact the subcommittee chairs for hearings.
So, Representative Caldwell, I've already let you know House Bill 666 and 672 and the DMVS subcommittee. House Bill 671, 695, and 698 will be in the Tags and Titles subcommittee. Representative Caldwell is going to get with me and give me a couple of days and times, and then we'll schedule a meeting, and you'll
Yeah.
get notice of it.
All right.
You want me to do those in the morning or the afternoon,
As soon as you have a subcommittee, we'll try to immediately carry forward to the committee. So whatever can work best for you.
Get
So.
back to Craig, today, soon as I can get out of here.
All right.
from my office.
Well, thank you again for coming. We now stand adjourned. Okay.